Hi everyone. Today we're going to be going over some tips and tricks on how to get your bike running if you're, staying at a hotel overnight and you get up the next morning, your bike's not running, you're on the trails, you took a break and you're trying to get back on your bike to go finish riding and it's dead. I'm doing a presentation at Dirt Days, so you may have seen this already because I'll post this after Dirt Days, but I figured I should make a video for people who aren't able to go to Dirt Days and want to see this as well. My name is Emily. I have been a self-taught mechanic. I've learned from my husband. I've learned from YouTube videos. I've read manuals on the bikes, and I've got some tips and tricks on how you can get your bike up and running, or diagnose at least what's wrong with it, to then figure out next steps of getting it picked up for a tow or finding parts that you can use to replace the parts that are broken on your bike. I also want to say sorry for the mess in my garage. We've been preparing for Dirt Days for the past couple weeks, so it's kind of a mess in here right now, but I wanted to get something filmed before the event. One thing I recommend that you, before even going on any of your trips, is to get a manual for your bike, like this, a shop manual. I'm not talking about the owner's manual that comes with the bike. The shop manual, this is for my CRF, has way more details, exploded part diagrams, and troubleshooting as well. While you wouldn't bring this on the trail with you, it's good to have for your own knowledge and stuff when you're working your bike off the trails. So definitely recommend a manual like this because it has so much information in it. Motorcycles are very complex and take a lot of moving parts and electronics to make them run, but to simplify things down for the general user who's just trying to figure out what's wrong with their bike, they need three things. They need fuel, they need air, and they need spark. If you don't have one of those three things, your bike will not run. The first thing I usually like to check is spark and battery. If you don't have a battery that's charged enough, you will not have spark, and that will kill you dead in the water right away. I have my 1972 Honda 125 here, and you'll show some demonstrations on this for now, but this applies to other newer motorcycles as well. The first thing I check is the battery charged enough? And you can grab yourself a voltmeter, or some bikes you can get little pieces you can attach to the battery that actually will show you the voltage. Some bikes may have it built in. I don't have anything fancy like that on my bikes, so I have on my CRF 250, I've got a USB charger that connects straight to my battery, but also reads out the voltage at the same time. So that gives me an idea of what my voltage is at that time. It doesn't require the key to be on or anything like that because it goes straight to the battery. The 125 over here doesn't have that, and I have to use a voltmeter. So let me show you what I do now. So what you want to do is you want to get down to the battery terminals, which are this and that. You can tell this is the negative side, this is the positive side. Honestly, you don't have to, it doesn't matter which one goes to which. You may read a negative number if you have it backwards. So if I were to take the red one and put on the negative, I read a negative voltage. It may be hard to see from the lighting, but then I reverse it and I get a positive voltage. So this battery is 6 volt. I get 6.2. which means I have enough battery on this bike to start it. If it's like at 5 something, this one is finicky to begin with. I have to be as close to 6 volts as possible for this one, otherwise it will not start. My CRF, I think it can be around like 11 something and it will still start. But if you don't have battery enough to, give it spark, then you're not gonna start whatsoever. So I always check the battery first, make sure I've got enough voltage in the battery, and then I move on to checking the spark next. So I have my 250 here, and this is what I meant by I had like the battery indicator here. So I turn that on, I have 12.6 volts. This is connected straight to the battery. If yours isn't straight to the battery, I wouldn't necessarily give it 100% confidence, as something else could be in line that could be drawing the battery down or showing you a wrong number. But mine's at 12.6, so this bike will start. So the next part you check is, do you have spark on the spark plug? I have only single cylinder engines, so I don't have an example for a 2-cylinder, but you basically take off one spark plug at a time, and then you would take this out of the hole. Make sure if you're on the trail, have a socket that actually will fit this. I've got a demonstration here I can do without having to pull it out to show their spark, and then I'll show it the other way as well. But this little tool here, you'll see light when it starts to spark. I have to kick this because it's a kickstart bike. It's not going to start because I have all the stuff off, but you get an idea of. So if you saw, it might be hard to see, but there was a little bit of light right here. That means I have spark. And let me show you the way you can test it on the trail next. Same thing here. You loosen up the bolt. And then you pull it out. Mine is a bit oily right now. I gotta tune it better, but stick it back into the spark plug boot, and you find somewhere on the bike to ground it out. And it's hard, might be hard to see on video, but there's 2 points here, and you'll see my fingers covering the spot so you can kind of see it better. Right there and there. You should see spark going between these two if you've grounded it out properly. Next, you want to find a place that you can have it touch bare metal on the bike without you having to hold it, because you can get shocked by it, and it's not necessarily fun. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this. Or even be able to show this at the same time, but as you try to start the bike. Hopefully I'm getting this in the film, but I see it sparking. So with that knowledge that this is sparking, we know that it should be getting the power part of this all working now. So something else you may want to check before you go on rides is the spark plug gap. If it's too big and it can widen over time, it's a good idea to always check that width between the 2 points. There's spark plug tester things. Let me grab one and I'll show you. These are feeler gauges, but they still could work for this purpose. There's also ones that are shaped like circular that you can use as well, but you basically would figure out what your spark plug gap is and then kind of slide it between the two and make sure it fits through it. Obviously I didn't check which size this is here, but kind of just showing you that's basically how I do it. And they'll move on to the next part, which is air. So on my 250L for spark, I basically have to go past this probably cooling hose, and then here's the spark boot, at which point you can pull off and check there. It might not be a bad idea to have one of those spark tester kits so then you don't have to pull it out completely like I showed you. It just makes it easier in that sense to not have to worry about pulling it completely out on the trail when you've got not a lot of clearance here to get it out. So for my 125, the air filter is in this box here, and this is the air boot that goes into the carburetor that then feeds the engine. If you think you're having an air filter issue, pull the air filter out, check it. I don't have an air filter for this bike to really show, but if you take the air filter, it should be like a paper, it could be foam depending on your bike. But for the paper ones, if you hold it up to the light and you can't see through it really, then it needs to be cleaned. Sometimes you can take air compressor to them, but if you're on the trail, it's more difficult to do, obviously. But if it's caked full of stuff and you need to get out of there, it's not advisable to run without an air filter, especially if you're off-roading and in like dusty, dirty environments. You can pull it out to see if the bike will start at that point, then you know it's your air filter. And you could technically ride it out of that dirty area without the air filter. It's not advisable, but if you're in a last ditch scenario effort, you need to get out of there, then that's something you do. You just have to be careful about getting the air filter in right away and then doing any preventative maintenance at that point. So for me, for this bike, if I think I was having an air filter issue, I would basically disconnect this hose from here, and then the carburetor has full access to air, no problem. The next thing is you need to have fuel for your bike, and my 125 has a carburetor. It has a fuel bowl here. Fuel comes in from the gas tank when it's up here. Obviously it's not on the bike right now, but one thing you can check, because if you have a fuel filter like I do, if it's empty and it's not getting flow, then that may be your issue. Your Petcock may have some issues with it, so you can always take that off and try running fuel out of it, and if it squirts out normally, you're fine. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to get fuel in my garage right now. But another thing is, if you have fuel in the tank and you know it, you can take this screw here, and this is the drain bolt. Especially for us up in the Northeast, when we're in wintertime, we don't ride our bikes as often. So I would go through and take this, unscrew it, and spit fuel back out. When I saw the fuel was all drained out, I knew my bike was quote unquote winterized in that sense. So that I wouldn't have any old fuel in the carburetor, mucking it up over the wintertime. And I could put in like ethanol free to just have it, have less chances of gunking up. This one here, it should drain out of this pipe here. Sometimes it just goes out of the screw. They can get locked up occasionally, so that's why I check it to make sure fuel's running out of the bowl, so I know that's got fuel there. My 125, or not my 125, my 250 has a fuel gauge on it, so I know if I'm running out of fuel that way. Some other bikes don't have that. If they're newer too, they don't have fuel gauges. My husband's DR doesn't. So we generally check in the tank to make sure he has fuel. And if he doesn't, we add fuel, and then we can go from there. So those are what I check for first: the fuel, the air, and the spark. And if I have all that stuff and the bike still doesn't want to start, then there's something else going on with it that you need to investigate further. Some bikes may have oil sensors that if it's too low of oil, it will not start. You can see how you can check that on your bike. Some bikes have sight glasses that if you have the bike level, you can get down the ground, and there's two different levels that it will show, and you can see where it is on that. This bike here has a little dipstick like a car. So basically how you're supposed to check it is you have to actually stick it in the hole. You don't twist it back down like it to seal it in. You just dip it in and then you pull it out, and then you check it like that, like a normal car one. But most newer bikes should have a sight glass. This is just ancient. I love it. It's a fun little bike to rip around on. My 250L has a sight glass. My husband's DR has a sight glass. And I've seen some other newer bikes that have sight glasses. So if you look in your owner's manual, should have that detail about where it needs to be level wise. If you're low on oil, that could also be a reason why it's not starting. You could have an electrical issue that is beyond what you can diagnose in the trails, and that could be your issue too. Again, I'm self-taught, so there are other methods of going across figuring out what's wrong with your bike. This is just what works for me, and if you have other ways you make your stuff work, that works too then. So this is how I troubleshoot bikes when off-roading or on the road or even at home. There are other ways to do it, but this is my approach, and I wanted to share how I approach the situation here. Again, I can't stress enough, get a shop manual, service manual that is the actual one. I know for my 125 over here, I have two climber manuals, one that was printed back in the 70s and then one that was printed more recently. And interestingly enough, the older one has more information and chapters that the newer one has taken out, like performance upgrades and some other things. So if you have a vintage bike and you want to learn more about it or how to do performance upgrades, look for an older copyright version of a manual because they may have taken things out. This one also, I found a shop manual for it online for free. Newer bikes, you're not going to have as much luck most likely unless someone, was decided to be nice and upload the entire, 500 plus pages of data. But you know, I refer to this like all the time. There's some stuff in it that, you know, when you're changing tires, there's the slack, the gap of the spark plug, and some other things that, you know, are important when you're working on bikes. If there's any way you troubleshoot your bike or something I missed, let me know in the comments, and I hope everyone has an amazing day.